Hi, as promised, I'm going to start the tutorial on the album I posted last night on YouTube. I'm going to have to do some arranging of the camera. Hopefully I won't make you dizzy. Now, when making this album, I am going to change the size a little bit, and we are going to go through and make all of these pages. I'm just going to make one change, and it's right here. I was not happy with the way when I split the binding. It bugged me, so I'm going to do something a little different for this video. But we will be making the inside cover, and we'll be doing all of the pages. And I want to tell you a little bit before we start. What I'm going to do first is we're going to make these first 5 pages. The front cover and the back cover, these will come after we make the cover. When making albums, I always make my pages first. And I also decorate my album pages before they go in. I did this album different. I had actually made the whole album and thought, okay, I'm going to decorate it intact. I don't like doing that because you don't have a nice flat surface. Your album just doesn't lay flat. There's not a lot you can do about it when you start adding your embellishments. So I'm going to go through everything on how I make an album because I've had so many requests. And you know, it's probably a little different than what you've seen before. For this album, I'm going to use Cardabella craft cardstock. It's beautiful. So I'm going to bring the camera down just to show you a little bit. It's a beautiful craft color. It's not that real harsh orange color. And I do sell it in the store at countrycraftcreations.com. It cuts like butter. It's just beautiful. It never shreds. It's just so easy to work with. So I'm going to use the craft color. And when decorating this album, I'm going to use Bo Bunny's new Sleigh Ride, because I'm making albums also for a craft fair that I'm doing in November. Isn't that beautiful? Very rustic, very Christmas rustic. So that's what I'm going to be making, and we will do the decorating. Now this is going to be a long video. That's why I'll be able to pause it back and forth, but I want to show you when I'm cutting and doing measurements. I'm not going to have anything pre-cut so you can see everything from the beginning. I'm going to move my camera here. I have my cutter is actually over here. It's quite a large cutter. So I will not be showing you while I'm cutting, but I will give you the measurements. And for this album, you do need magnets. These are basic gray. I secured them with, they don't have adhesive. So I was able to get them from Basic Gray. They gave me a whole bunch because they just weren't, they didn't have the adhesive, and so they weren't sellable, they said. I said, I can make those work, not a problem. But you will need magnets. Preferably, you're going to want large magnets for this album. I didn't use any small magnets because they will not hold through the layers of paper. And you're going to want a good cutter, and of course your ruler and your scoreboard. I use the ScorePal scoreboard. I just started using this about a month ago. Let me show you. You'll see me working on it a lot. It has amazing markings. So let me bring this up. Look at those markings. They're so easy to read. Then they have this that you can purchase separate, and it sits inside. So you can also cut, you can score, and then you can use this for if you have to use a razor blade. I just move it over when I'm working, do my scoring. I push it back and I continue. You'll see me working on that a lot. So you do need a good scoreboard. And whatever tools you use, I use score tape. I don't use anything else because I don't like my magnets to fall apart. So this is the score tape. I use the 1/2, 3/8, 1/4, and 1/8. That's personal preference. You don't have to, but if you want an album that's going to last forever, this is a must. And let me tell you, if you don't go out and buy glue, score tape, red line, and all those other items, and you just use your score tape, you're going to save money because you're not buying 3 and 4 and 5 different things. So that's just what I've learned over the years, is stick with one thing and you'll find that you're not really spending as much. Now this album that I made for Christmas actually is a 9-inch, and I'm going to cut it down because it took a lot of paper, and most people don't want to use that much paper. And I admit I didn't want to, but it came out beautiful, so I was very excited. So what we'll do now is we'll just go ahead and get started. And I'm going to get started with the very first page, with the construction of our pages. And the thing with the construction of this, because I had to figure it out, I had seen on a lot of different videos, Ashmita Roy was one. I loved like the inside cover that she did here. It was just beautiful. So mine's a little bit different, but she doesn't have any tutorials, so I just had to wing it. So we're going to start first with our pocket. So we're going to make this first pocket piece, and the construction of each page as we're making them is different. So you're going to learn a couple of different page constructions. So I know that I want to make my pages probably 7 by 8 or 7 by 7.5 on this album. And I don't do a lot of writing down, and I wing it as I go. I just make my albums as I go. So I'm going to write down so I don't forget that I decided. That's about the only thing I do. 7 by 7.5. This way too I can get more use out of my paper. And I'm going to cut my first sheet is going to be 7 inches, but we're going to have to make it 8.5 long. Okay, so there's this piece, and it is this, I'll get it over here, 8.5, because we need a 1/2 inch on each side by 7. And if I go quiet every now and then, forgive me, I'm just thinking for a moment, because like I said, I don't have patterns. I just make my albums as I go and what I'm thinking I want it to turn out like. Then we have to have our top piece. So our top piece, we're going to make it 7 by 7.5. So I set that to the side, and on our 8.5 inch side, we're going to score it 1/2. And I'm going to score the other side at 1/2. When I'm working with the Cartabella paper, I'm going to be honest with you, I have to score on both sides because it's really a good firm paper. And like I said, as we're going along, I may realize that I goofed, and we'll fix it right then and there. And I already did goof. I wanted that first pocket to be shorter. So when you open, see how this page is actually shorter than the rest? So we are going to cut our 8.5 inch piece, or 7 inch piece of paper. We still want it to be 8.5 long, but let's cut it down. Let's take an inch off and cut it down to 6. And yes, this is how I work. So I'm letting you get a really good taste of it. So we're going to have to cut then our top piece off to 6. So this piece should be 6 by 7.5 inches long, and then we have 6 by 8.5 long. So let me get my square tape. And I figure instead of starting the video over constantly, if I make a little error like that, this will kind of give you an idea of what I go through with myself every day. Now on here I used a envelope scoreboard, or the envelope punch board. Totally up to you if you want to make the indent here inside of your pocket. And so what I'm going to do is use my envelope board. Oh, let me turn on this light. Let me see if it makes a big difference with you guys. Oh, maybe this is better. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and cut on the envelope scoreboard. I'm going to go to the 2 inches. We're bouncing here. I'm going to punch that side. I'm just going to turn it over. I'm going to hit the 2 again. And then we're going to go ahead and get out. You'll need your ruler And then you need a box cutter, or you need your whatever knife you're using. I have 2 different knives. Okay, now we're going to take a straight edge or a ruler, and what you want to do is from right there where it dips over to this side, you're going to lay your, whoops, going the wrong way. Push down hard on the ruler and then just cut that off. You can use scissors if you're a really good straight shot. I am not. But I do have a little bit of a hump right there that would bug me, so I'm going to just fix that right there. And then another step I usually do, I love these blocks. You can just get them at Sam's or Walmart. Takes the rough edges right off your papers. Or maybe if you have a dull blade. So now we just go ahead with our 1/2 inch right here. And I use my 3/8 of an inch score tape. And on then the top part here, I'm going to go ahead and miter these corners. Just take them down to an angle. It gives a nicer finished look. So now we know that our piece should fit just fine. Now sometimes when it comes to this top piece, I like to cut it down 1/8 of an inch. And the reason for that is I am guaranteed that way no hangovers on the sides. I like it to line up pretty perfect. So what I do when I'm doing things like this, then I just take off a portion of my score tape and then I line up. Reason being, and I won't mention it anymore, but it's easier if you have to take apart this piece than to have to try and pull this whole thing off. Like, see, I just did. I put it on upside down or backwards. So I'm going to carefully pull this off. Now, also, Cartabella is the only paper I've ever worked with where I've been able to do that. I can actually, it has such a beautiful finish that it's forgiving. Like the first time, I can actually get it up off of the score tape. So now we're going to just line it up right there. And then I turn it and make sure everything else is lined up. And then I remove the score tape, and with my thumb, I just follow behind, securing it down. And then it's nice and straight, and it's on there. And then when I go to do the other side, I do the same thing, because nothing ever matches perfect. So I just get it started. And it looks like I've got a little bit over here, so I'm going to have to move my paper. Now, if you happen to get a page, and can you see how it's kind of bowed? That drives me nuts, and it's a little, let me show you, maybe, oh, let me turn it this way. Can you see how it's not quite flat? Well, you're going to make it go flat. You're going to just work that paper over. If you've ever put wallpaper on the wall, then you know that you can make paper go where you want it to go. And with this Cartabella, I am using this sharp side. I'm not afraid of tearing this paper. I don't know what they've done, but it's just beautiful and strong and so easy to work with. Okay. Once again, I'm going to push that over a little bit more because I want it to make sure it's a little flatter. And there's going to be our first pocket. Now our first pocket is 6 inches, so it's going to be 1 inch shorter. And now we want to make our flap. And I want the flap to be 2.5 on here, I want it to hang over, so I need a 1/2 inch score mark. So I'm going to cut a 3-inch piece by 7.5, and you should have your scraps. You should have a scrap pile already just from that page. So I want to see. I'm just going to cut that down 1/2 inch. Once again, when I'm doing my flaps, I will cut about 1/8 inch shorter. So this is 1/8 inch shorter than the page. That just ensures it's going to line up nicely. And another real quick word about this cutter I'm using. It's a dolly, and I know there's others. You never have to change the blade. The warranty is so excellent on it. They have replaced it once for me, only because the letters were wearing off, the numbers, and I can cut through chipboard like butter. So now back to this. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to score it 1/2 inch. And like I said, if you're using Cartabella, I am turning it over. And for the sleigh ride, I don't think I'm going to do any rounding of the corners because it's going to be a rustic look. So if you want, though, you can go ahead and cut your corners, round them, decorative edge, whatever you want to do. It's actually easier if you do it right now. And then we're going to put our score tape. You're going to put your score tape so it's on the inside. So I need to reverse that. Okay, so your corners, I'm just going to take a little bit off. It's no big deal because it's going to be on the back side. But I still want them to be tapered so it doesn't really show under my matting. Then we're just going to set it. So here's our opening. Set it on here so it's nice and straight. I like to look at it from the front. And then I turn it over, holding it down where I want it. Remove the score tape. And there you have a wonderful pocket. And this side is going to go onto our hinges. Now, right now, I'm going to go ahead and add my magnet. I've got a little bit of there we go. I'm going to add my magnets. If you're using the basic gray large, they do have adhesive, and I don't know, sometimes the adhesive isn't that wonderful. And so you might have to add your own. And that's when I bring in the score tape. Some crafters like to use glossy accents. That works wonderful too. Now the main thing is that you want to get this so it's not too close to this edge and it's not too close to that edge. And if it is, don't fear, you can just take it up. Somewhat centered. Okay, then I'm going to take the tape off that one, push it down. Now I'm going to open it slowly because a lot of times they want to catch each other. Then I'm going to use my score tape and I'm just going to go over the top. And it closes beautifully. Everything will lay down even nice and flatter when we're matting our pages. And then you can just set this one aside because I'm not going to do anything on this back side yet. For this album, I might put a waterfall, and so we will decide where we're going to put it. So let's put that page aside and on to the next one. Now our next page is the page with the large pocket, and then we're going to have a flap, and there will be a belly band. Let's put that aside. So let's go ahead and cut our page. Whoops. Go ahead and cut your page. You still want to cut it at 7.5 by 7. Because we want it to be 7 inches long and 7 inches wide. Okay, and I like to leave about a 2-inch when I'm doing a larger pocket, so I want 2 inches there. So we know we need to cut 5 inches by 8.5 again, because we have to score it on each end. And you might have a piece. You know what? So we don't have to waste it. There should be a 5-inch piece. And I'm going to go ahead and use this. So I'm going to cut mine 5 inches by 8.5 since it's already cut. It was left over from our pocket. So let's move this aside. And turn it to the 8.5-inch side. And we're going to score it 1/2. I'm going to turn it over and just go over that score again so it folds nice. And I love being able to work on my scoreboard and not having to move it off to the side and constantly grabbing it. Ah. Okay, and once again, my 3/8 score tape. I'll show you another trick I use with my scoreboard. Now, you only need to go ahead to the top, miter those corners so they hide under the paper. Now, another thing is if you are having trouble keeping things straight, you can use this scoreboard to line up your page. And then you can stick it down. I'm going to go ahead and just remove a corner. Now I like to just grab mine and hold it up so I can see exactly where I'm putting it. I lost my little towel here. There it is. I'm very OCD about the pages being so straight. This is why I do it this way. And I know it's probably, you know, just personal preference. Okay, I'm going to line that up again. Make sure everything's straight. Okay, now we know we want to have the flat flip that comes over, and I'm going to actually cut that one at 4.5 because I need a 1/2 inch to score. I'm going to do 4.5 by 7.5, and again, we might even have, oh look at that, we do. I had a piece depending on how you cut, so I'm just going to cut this at 7.5. And because we want it to open this way, we're going to score on the long side. So on the 4.5 inch side, we're going to score it 1/2 inch. And again with the score tape. Now for these corners, I do want to use my envelope board because I want to make this type of a corner. So if you have an envelope punch board, if not, you can just use a punch. I'm going to take my paper, and if you've ever used your punch board, you know there's a metal bar right in the middle. If you can see that. I'm taking this piece of paper just right to the edge of that metal bar, not quite to this piece that sticks out. And there I have my corner. And you'll also do that with your matting. So there's my corners. And then we're going to go ahead and put this one on here. And again, you might want to look, and I am going to go ahead, I need to cut this just a hair. And then I'm going to redo my corner, just because I had to cut it a little bit. That's where cutting it 1/8 of an inch shorter is helpful, because you just never know if you got the perfect measurement when you were cutting or not. Okay, I've got my little tail. Let me go ahead and get that started. Do the thumb chase. And there we have that piece. Now I do want the belly band also. So we have a 4-inch page, and we've got plenty of scraps. You might even have a piece that's big enough. So I'm going to go ahead and take this piece right here, and I'm going to cut it down to 2.5. And I'm going to cut it at 5, because we need that 1/2 inch on each side. And also, you can make your belly band as wide as you want. You don't have to have it this wide if you want it to be not so wide. Okay, that little disaster with the grandkids was taken care of, so I'm back. Now, it is totally up to you when it comes to your belly band. Do you want to put it down now, or do you want to wrap it? I like to wrap it on the matting, so that these little pieces here, these wings or whatever, is on the bottom. So they're not laying on top, so you can't see. So they're actually underneath this paper. So I'm just going to take my belly band, and we're going to go ahead and put score tape on the inside. And then I'm just actually going to set this inside the pocket, and then I'll remember that it's there. Or you can even use a paper clip. However you want to secure it to the page so that you know that's where it goes and you don't lose it. Now on the inside, I want to put a magnet on my door. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my large magnets, and we're going to do the same thing to our, or you can put, like I said, you can just take your backs off if you've already got the basic grays. These are the same, the basic grays. They're just without. And I do prefer the large. I'm going to go right about in the middle. Now another way too, if you're having trouble when you put your magnet down and you're opening your page and it's coming up, take a piece of cardstock, put it between. Let me show you. Then when you open your page, your magnet's still where you want it. And then go ahead and just put another piece of tape over the top. And that makes sure it's where you put it, where you wanted it, while you're moving on making your pages. Now, there's going to be a big tag in here, but we won't make it till after it's on the hinge, because we have to allow for that hinge. Now for our next page, we're going to have the gatefold. It's going to open this way and this way, and then we're going to have a pocket on that side and a pocket on this side. So when we turn this over, I just have to do some remeasuring because we've got a different size. So I know I want this one first to come over 3.5. So we're going to do a 3 by 7.5 inch piece. So let me cut that one first. And I'm going to cut it 1/8 of an inch shorter. Just so we don't have any hangover. So double check that. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and keep this piece instead of wasting it. So we're going to have a 5 inch by 7.5 inch. It will go over on the right hand side. And then we're going to take another piece and we're going to go with 3.5. No, sorry, make that 4. Okay, I'm happy with the way that looks. And now I'm going to score down the long way, 1/2 inch. Doesn't matter which side at this point. This will have a little different look than the Christmas one because we're going to have 2 different sizes. Okay, like I said, one side is going to be a little bit wider on this album because the dimensions are different, but we're still going to have the pockets. So let's go ahead and put our score tape here. And then I'm going to go ahead and miter the top and the bottom. And then one thing about learning how to do this album, you can also mix and match your pages or use different pages. Now I like to make sure that I'm the right orientation here so I don't put anything on backwards. So we're going to start our little corner there. Line it up. All right, we're going to do the same with this one. So now that's going to turn over and go like that. So we have that overflap. Now, one thing you may be wondering, there's no way we can get a magnet over here because of where our page hits. So I'm going to show you something that I do. I'm going to actually put the magnet here and then on the base. But we're going to do that after we put our pockets on. So let's go ahead. Now the pockets are going to, like I said, be a little different size. So we're still going to go with the 7.5. Now when you cut it at 8.5, make sure you take that just a tiny bit of, probably 1/8 of an inch off. And this side, I'm actually going to have a 2.25 inch pocket. So I'm going to do 8.5 by 2.25. And for this one, we are going to have our scores on 3 sides. So down the long way. This one is going to be a smaller pocket than on the right hand side. Won't be quite as deep. Okay, I'm going to get all my sides pushed up. And my score tape. Now, if you don't like this, you know, small of a pocket, of course you can do your own dimensions. Now we're going to go ahead and miter our corners. And then here, what I do is I just start like that, but then I turn it. I don't want to completely take off, you know, straight across, or they just won't meet together. Let me take a little bit more here. I'm going to go ahead and remove the bottom. Ah, almost put my bone folder in the garbage. Well, I guess that's better than putting the score tape in the garbage. I've done that many a times. Okay, now you need your page to fold, so you want to keep it about 1/8 of an inch away from your fold. And there's our first pocket. Now for the second pocket, it's not going to be too much different, but I'm going to go with 2 3/4 by the 8 1/2. Sorry, I've got to cut one more sheet. Make sure I'll be oh yeah, that's great. So we're going to go ahead and do the half on all 3 sides. And sport tape. If you are using a wet adhesive, go ahead and miter your corners and cut everything off first, of course. And I hope, let's see, I'll probably do this video in 2 parts, actually 3. I'm hoping to get this one up so that you can start making your pages and you won't have to wait. And then I'll get to the cover, and that will be separate. And then of course decorating will be third. And to be honest with you, I've really never gone through a video decorating, so you'll have to be patient with me because, again, I don't have anything set in mind. I just start, but I'll show you my methods. So we're going to go ahead and keep this just about 1/8 of an inch away from our fold. Secure it all down. And I did get my pocket over a little bit. I don't like that. So let me see if I can encourage this score tape. Like I said, this is the only paper I've ever been able to get my score tape to release on. I'm not happy with that hanging over the page. I had a feeling that would be like that. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Oh, it's starting to tear, so we won't go any further. I'm going to bring it more, and I'm going to see if I can encourage this. Okay, we're going to have a little bit of resistance here. But I'm going to encourage it here. And when I was asked to do a video uncensored, well, that's what you're getting. This is what I go through. And I've learned you don't throw your pages away. You just work them. You make them do what you want them to do if you can. I realize it's just paper. There we go. And once you cover it up with your matting, no one's going to be the wiser. Only you will know that there was a boo-boo there. Okay, I'm going to close it, make sure. Now, see, I had it hanging over. I didn't like that. And I am being rough. I would not be rough with paper if it was from one of the other scrapbook stores. But this Cartabel I can. Now that actually is not going to show, because when I mat, I'll make sure I put like an extra border, or there'll be something there to camouflage that. Or maybe I'll bring a ribbon through. Magnets. Now, the reason I use my large magnets with especially pockets, you're going to have a tag in here. If you do not have a strong enough magnet, it's not going to hold it shut because of the tag. But I know with the large magnets, so we have it open. We're going to close it down. You might have to pull it, there we go, to the side a little bit. And then when you close this, because you see where the magnet hits, there's no way we could make that work. And then when I close it though, it's strong enough that it's going to hold it shut. So there's our page 2. And then we have our tape sticking. There we go. Once it's matted, that won't happen. So we have our page there. There we go. And we can set this so when we put it together, I'm going to have it going like this. Now see how this one is shorter? It's exactly the look I wanted. So we can put those two aside. Now for this page, I had put these pockets, and like I mentioned, I was not happy with the way I had to split the spine. So I'm actually going to do a little different page. We're still going to have pockets, but instead of, let me show you, instead of this pocket page being here, we're going to have this page over here and then just do away with our pocket page. So what we're going to do is need another piece of cardstock, our page size of 7 by 7.5. And then we're going to need another piece, 7 by 8.5. And this will actually be easier than showing you how I did that page, because I had to do this weird inside hinge, and it worked, but I don't know if I could show you again. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do our 1/2 inch scoring on the 8.5 inch side at 1/2 of an inch. Move things up so we're more in camera. Okay, I'm slightly miter my corners just to get rid of that sharp edge. And I'm just going to double check this before I stick it down. It looks like I might have, I'm going to just take another 1/8 of an inch off. Or more like a 1/16 of an inch, just a tiny piece. So I'm just taking like a sliver off. So it's not much at all, but it's enough to line it up so we don't have any hangover off the edges. I don't know why, that just drives me crazy. Now, when I make my pages and my books, this way I can actually have a book done usually within an hour and a half, one this size. And I can even have the cover put aside. And then I usually take another day or two and decorate after I kind of get an idea in my head what I want it to look like. Sorry if I'm out of camp focus here. I just got to get it straight. Okay. I'm kind of working backwards here. Oh, the tape didn't come off. No wonder. Sorry. No wonder it wasn't sticking down. And then again, I'm going to push it aside. And some of you may be thinking that I spend way too much time worrying about it being straight. I know one of my, I just love is the Super Happy Scrapper. And she's able to boom boom, but I just, everything's got to be straight or I just can't work on it. So we have our base page that's going to go into the hinge. And instead of those pockets, what we're going to do is we're going to add them right onto the page, because I don't want to have that problem with the hinges again. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to have to kind of figure it out. Be patient here. So I know that 7.5, and basically we want to just cut our paper right in half at 3 3/4. Okay, here's what I decided to do on the pockets. So we're going to go ahead and cut 2 pieces that are 3 5/8 by 6.5. So you're going to have 2 of those. Then you need to cut 2 pieces that are 7 by 3 1/4. Now I had to go ahead and already cut these because I was figuring out how I wanted these pockets to look. Now on your 6 1/2 inch sheet, we're going to score on the 6 1/2 inch side at 1/2, just one end. We're going to score that at 1/2. Now on the 3 1/4, you're just going to do 3 sides. So we're going to do 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, and then a 1/2 inch. So you'll have one side that's not scored on. And the reason being is I want this to be shorter so that I can pull a tag out. And if you like, you can still put a flap on it like we did on our first pocket that will go over the top. And I'm actually going to leave them open because I want to make a really pretty tag that will show through at the top of the pocket. So there we go. Now, go ahead and start with our 2 pockets. And we're just going to fold up these 3. Sorry, let me see what my granddaughter just texted as we're talking here. Okay, now we're going to go ahead with our score tape, and I'm going to do all 3 sides. And then on this one where we only scored on the 1/2 inch on the end, go ahead and take your score tape, and we're going to go ahead and put it across like that. Now before we put these on our page, let's go ahead because we want to attach the pocket. And just like we do all of our other pockets, we're going to go ahead and taper our corners. And I'll be right back. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that minute pause in the, just thought I'd close the door. We're having a few narrations from my grandkids in the playroom. Whoops. And let's go ahead and just taper these corners at the top. And I'm sorry, let me move this. I think I'm going out of camera a lot. So I tapered the corners and I did our bottoms like we did our other pockets. And we're going to go ahead and take our score tape off. You know, it's kind of the norm when you're a mom or grandma. You don't have anybody talking or bothering you until you start recording. It's kind of funny. Now I'm going to match these up at this end, this open end. And then I'm going to take it back towards our hinge side. And we'll do the same thing onto this. Now make sure your hinge is over to the left. And we're going to do the same thing here at the bottom. Okay, now for our next page. You'll notice we are going to do a little different on the front of this page because I had these pockets by themselves, so they counted as a page. And now we've added those onto the front of this page and put this on the back. Sorry. So instead of having this here, we're going to have it, but we have to add another page design. So for this page design, I'm going to actually make a side pocket, and then on the back, we're going to make the pocket across the back, so that now we're kind of going back to the flow of the original album. So cut your first piece of cardstock 7 by 7.5. And then you're going to cut another piece of cardstock 8.5 by 5. And actually you should have this, you might even have it in your scraps. So after you cut the paper 7.5 by 5, let's go ahead and score. You're going to score the ends at 1/2 of an inch on both sides. And then we're going to score tape. So we're just having to do a little modification, and that's just fine. And as soon as I perfect doing the cut hinge, because I have an idea of what I want to do, I haven't seen it done, and I'm going to use more reinforcements, because when you cut your hinge in half to add those half pages, unless you are doing separate hinges, then you do have you have that wear and tear. And if you do the stack or the hidden hinge like I use the scoring method, you can't really do a half hinge. So I will work on that. We'll get it perfected, and I'll do another video for you. So on this now, remember our pages are 7 inches wide by 7.5 inches long, and this is going to be a pocket, but also the hinge. Okay, so we have a pocket now that will go this way. The hinge is going to go on that side, and I don't want it just to be a side pocket. I want some interest and some flap. So I'm going to make a couple flaps that's going to be like a book. Let me just get some measuring done. So our first piece, actually I do want it 5, so I'm going to cut a 5.5. Five and a half by 4 is going to be our first piece. And again, you should have plenty of scraps over in your pile. So 5.5 by 4. Okay, so it'll be like that. Now for our next piece, because we went 4 this way and 5.5 this long, we're still going to do the 4. It's going to actually be over 1/2 of an inch. So let's do a 5 by 4. Looks good. Okay, so let's set this aside for just a minute. Now on our 2 pieces, so on the first one, on the 5.5 inch side, go ahead and score it 1/2. Oops. And on our next piece at 5, we're going to score it 1/2. The mouse cord doesn't want to stay out of the way. And one reason I like this size is if I'm using the 6 by 6 coordinating paper pad, especially with Graphic 45, then I can use my 6 by 6 pads for my matting on these smaller ones. So hinge, we're going to do hinge to hinge. And it should be, oops, you know what, I am going to go ahead, I've lost my scissors. I'm going to do these, miter those corners. I didn't cut that one very straight. Move it on up a little bit, make it. I think that's going to be okay though. Do a little more encouraging to get it over there. I'm going to trim it just a little bit on my cutter. And that's what I love about these bigger cutters. You can cut through multiple layers since it does chipboard. So I can go right through all of this. And even all my waterfalls, everything up completely. They're so worth having. So it was a great investment. Besides that, with this cutter, I don't ever replace the blades. And they are about $100, but when you consider how many blades you buy during the year, so worth it. Okay, let's miter those corners. Now our pocket's that way, so we want to have the flap here. And I am going to go ahead, I don't do this very often. I'm just going to find my center. Still, I'm just going to eyeball it, but I like to kind of have my center. And then again, we're going to need a magnet. So the magnet, though, is going to go on the inside here. So I'm going to find where I want it there. I'm going to make sure the placement will be away from all edges. Usually just use my fingers. Then when you move the top one, see this bottom one will follow. And that looks good. So it'll just keep following as long as you have them stuck there together. And I'm going to go ahead and tape this one. Now I'm going to slowly open this. There we go. It did stick where we wanted it to. Now, if I wasn't using the large magnets, as you can see, you would be putting a small one here and you would be putting a small one there. So you're actually saving on the use of your magnets. And I'm not going to worry about putting score tape because they're not directly touching each other, so the force isn't quite as great. And there is another interactive fun page that is a little different than the Christmas, but now we're going to get back with the flow, and we're just going to have the nice big pocket on the back side. So I'm going to do a 4-inch pocket. So I want to cut the paper at, let me double check. No, let's cut it. I want a 3.5-inch pocket. So let's do 4 by our 8. That's wrong. No, that is not wrong. 4 by 8. So we have to cut it 4 high, 8 long. We've been working the other direction that I got confused. Hopefully I'll have a scrap piece. And I do, I believe. Yep. I love having the scraps so we don't have to cut into new papers. And let's do our scoring. 1/2 inch all the 3 sides. And we'll get all of our 1/2 inches here prepared. Let's see, bone folder. And I really hope that this has helped make it easier for you to kind of decide, you know, your own albums. You can see how easy flaps and pockets are. It's just basically a picture that you want to get in your mind of how you want your album to look. And then you just start building it. Sorry, I have to see what I did wrong here. Let's see. I don't know why. See, this is one reason I do the little tricks I do with the score tape and not taking it all the way off. I am terrible at getting things completely straight. There we go. And that's another reason I love this Cartabella paper. You get that one-time forgiveness as long as you don't adhere it down. So there we go. So we have page number 4, and then we'll have a pocket. Now we'll go on to page number 5. And so we're kind of back because we have this page. It's just on the back instead of on the front. My keyboard. So now we're going to make this page where we have the 2 flaps. They're going to be the full page flaps, and we have that, and then on the back we're going to have another gatefold with a pocket. Now, and then we'll do the front and back when we do the covers. So let's go ahead, and we are going to have to do, no, we're not, we're going to be fine. We have to do 7 by 8, because that's one thing you have to look at too when you're designing your books. How are you going to do your hinges, and what kind of pages are you going to make? Because you do have to have that piece that fits onto your hinge. So let's cut our sheet 7 by 7.5. I have seen some tutorials where they actually just take this page and adhere it to the hinge, and I'm not brave enough. I know it wouldn't be straight, and I don't know if it would last. So I'm not that brave yet. Now we need a side pocket, which is actually going to be on the back side. So it's going to be over here on the right hand side, and it is a larger pocket. It's a little deeper. So let's go ahead with 4 by 8.5. And so what we're actually doing is we're going to put the back side pocket on first. And then we will make those 2 sets of full-size pages that go on top of the next, on the front side of the page. Hold that thought. Don't do what I just did. And I keep forgetting this is also a hinge, so let me just get that score mark out. Seeing like the score mark As soon as I cover it with paper, it's fine. So yeah, that was a major goof. Okay, 8.5 by 4 is still the same, but don't score on 3 sides. Only score on 2 sides. And if you did score, just take your bone folder and you'll work it out enough because you're going to cover it with paper. And see, actually, you can barely see it. And as soon as I put paper over the top of it, we're fine. So our page is 7. This is going on the 7.5 inch side, making sure I cut everything like I was supposed to. Now on here, I'm going to go ahead and just miter the top corners. Because you just want it square where the hinge goes. And okay, so that's going to be our back page, but let's go ahead and work on the front. And that way I know we have our hinge and it's the right orientation. So now we want to make kind of a graduating page. So our first one, we're going to cut 5.5. We're going to cut 5.5 by 7.5. So, and that's on our page. And then our next one, we're going to cut 5 by 7.5. So it'll cascade somewhat like that. Now on here, you can decide, do you want to just use magnets? And what happened was I did forget a magnet here on this first page, and so it was too late. I couldn't, you know, of course, pick up the paper, and I forgot one here. What is odd is there's a magnet over on this back side. The magnet is actually inside of this pocket holding this flap down, and it was enough, I just love these big magnets, it was enough that it held this metal embellishment down. So I was able to use just the eyelet, hold it down, so a swing tab. So that, you know, that can be a decision that you want, or you can go ahead and do your magnets and then just add one there for decoration. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and add the magnets to this one because it's not going to be as formal looking as my Christmas album. So on each one of your pieces that you just cut, okay, we're going to go down the long side. We need to score 1/2 inch. This is going to be a little more rustic looking Western album, Christmas Western. Okay, set that aside for a minute. When I do the bigger pages like this, I actually don't put these two together like we did the smaller ones. I don't do this first because I've had to adjust my cuts. Maybe I wanted it shorter after I got it on, so I like to put each one on separate. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this is just how I do the album. I have my own little idiosyncrasies. Everybody's different. Things that bother me probably don't bother anybody else. So you know, can put your albums together, of course, how you're comfortable. There's no right way or wrong way. Unless you make a mistake. Okay, so there's that one. Turn that down just a hair. Okay, and then we're going to match that up. So I am going to go ahead with the magnets because actually I'm going to be using probably some different hardware. This is kind of big, but I'll probably use a doorknob on this, a smaller. And so I do want to put a magnet on this first page, and then I want to put one on my base page. That will hold everything down. Now it also might be enough for this flap over here, and we won't have to use but one more magnet. Now if anybody is interested in these magnets, they are a little cheaper when I get them without adhesive, but there's a little issue with them. They are sort of seconds, but they still work really well. And so not only do they not have the adhesive, but sometimes they break. And so I haven't really put them up for sale yet for that reason. But if I get enough interest in the cheaper ones, I will. But sometimes I don't know if it's worth it with as many as I break. Okay. So there we have one here, then we have one on our first flap, and it holds it down beautifully. So now we just have to make our flap over on this side, and I do want it to come quite a ways over. So let's go ahead. Let's cut it at 5.5. No, let's cut it at 6. 6 by 7.5. 6 inches wide by 7.5 inches. Let's check my length here. And let's go ahead and do some scoring on that long side at 1/2 of an inch. Turn this towards me. Now I want to check something out and see if I can get by with one magnet. And I think I can. So what I did is I just let this magnet grasp on this second page, and if the time comes and I find that I do need another magnet, then I can go ahead and put another one. But this way I haven't wasted, you know, another magnet, because that's really strong. These basic gray large ones are extremely strong, and that should hold it even through the matting. So now that we have that one done, let's go through real quick. We have our pocket page. Nice big space in there. Then this is going to be our belly band. And that has the large pocket there. And when we turn it over, then we have what I call our layout spread. And this page, you know, I really like it. I like the way it came out. I like the way it looks. It looks nice and clean. There's no splitting on the hinge there. And then we have our large pocket. Kind of reminds me of a book bag for some reason, a backpack. And then this page was kind of a little different, so it's more like our add-on page. And then we have our pocket. And you know, when we're decorating, I'll show you, I think I might put a belly band there to hold the tags in here, and then one on top. I'll show you that one we can make as we're going. And then we have our little booklet, and then another large pocket with the large flap, which makes it nice because you've got so much room in here for pictures. So there is the making of the pages, and I'll get this video up and I'll start working on the cover, so that will follow, and we'll make our cover and hinges, and then I decorate, and then I put my pages into my book. So if you're anxious to get past that part, I think if you've never decorated, I don't know, I just like working on this flat surface. So I think it just makes it a lot nicer, a lot easier, and I hope it doesn't hold you up because you want the cover done. But if you want the cover done, then you might already know. So go ahead and get started there, and let me know if this was helpful or if I screwed you up anywhere, and I'll be glad to help you. Just send me a message and I will get back with you really quick. Thanks for joining me.